In today's show, we have a multi-topic episode where we discuss, firstly, is a 4-day week good or bad for people and industry? Then we discuss what's going on with the dog suicide bridge. Yes, you heard that rightly. Dog suicide bridge in Scotland. And finally, we discuss, is it possible to prove that a person is objectively stupid?
And now, the TNT Talk Show, daring to go where other podcasts fear to tread.
Hello, I'm Tony Fasula and I share the stage with my esteemed friend and colleague Tayo Bowyer. Tayo, hello my friend, I hope you're keeping safe and well.
Yeah, what the hell, Tony? What you gonna do, eh?
Come on, I'm going to ask you to say a positive hello to our audience.
What the hell? Hello, audience.
I've beaten you, haven't I? You've actually succumbed now, which is great.
That's what I tell you. The lucky ones die first, and eventually you just get tireder and tireder and tireder until you can. You know what? I give up. You know. It's like how friends are like penguins. Have you ever thought about how friends just are like penguins?
No, I can't really have made that comparison.
Yeah, if you stab a penguin, it dies.
Right. What? That is just terrible.
I was thinking about friends who make you say hello to audiences and things like that.
Okay,
friends
I
like
shall
that,
reserve that.
They're just like penguins, you know.
Remind me not to come round to your house. Oh dear. Anyway, on with our show. And today, yes, in today's show is slightly different. We're discussing a number of topics, time permitting, of course. But what we'll start with is a 4-day week good or bad for industry and for the people concerned? Now, you came up with this one, so do you want to kick things off?
I was watching a video. It was about blue sky thinking, and one of the ideas that popped up was a suggestion that it's time for us to aid society become a better environment for citizens by allowing people more time at home with their families.
Okay.
And to move on to a 4-day work week. And I think the idea was that we are we should be a more efficient society, given that we have the technological means to help in that endeavor. And there's really no actual need for us to be in the office 5 days a week.
Well, there's different. I mean, it's not one size fits all with this, to be honest, because the working week, I mean, it's been trialed in different formats, to be honest, and in some formats, it's condensed to a 4-day week, but you're still working the same number of hours as you would in a 5-day week. So instead of 8 hours a day in a conventional 5-day week, so you're working 40 hours, you're doing 10 hours a day across those 4 days. So you're not losing any time at work, you're just gaining an extra physical day that you can spend with yourself, with your family, or whatever you want to do. So 4 days in work, 3 days off. But those 4 days, you're actually working 10-hour days. And that's one way of doing it. So the actual hours worked isn't reduced, so the employer isn't feeling, I don't know, compromised. But
Yeah,
go on.
I've got to be honest with you. That doesn't work for me. I'm already struggling with 8-hour days. So telling me to stick in another couple of hours a day, is not something that I would be willing to do.
But you're getting an extra day every week, so you've got a longer weekend. Does that not appeal?
You can take your longer weekend and you can put it somewhere where all sorts of uncomfortable things would happen. I don't care. I want a 4-day week because I don't want to work for what is it, a 40-day
40 hours.
a 40-hour week.
Okay.
I want to work less
Okay.
for the same amount of money because in real terms the people on top have been making a killing and they're earning more and more and more in relative terms, and they're not, as far as I can tell, working harder. So it's people like me at the bottom of the hierarchy who are being put upon more and more. And I think, well, if you're not going to pay me more, then work me less.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of trials going ahead with this sort of analogy, an 4-day week as opposed to 5. But you know that it used to actually be a 6-day week back at the start of the 19th century, and it was only the I think it was Ford himself, Ford Motor Company, chose to remove the Saturday because people used to work 6 days a week and only had the Sunday off. But he chose to reduce it to 5 days a week to encourage his workforce. Yeah, I think it was Ford in 1926, yes. And he theorized that it would increase productivity, even the effort would remain the same. And in reality, that is actually true. But what they've discovered by reducing the workforce now to 4 days is that you find that some percentage of workforce actually are disengaged from work. So because they're spending too long away. So rather than being 5 days a week, you have your weekend and then you're back again, you're feeling engaged because you're there quite regularly. But reducing that to 4 days, you're now further away from work more often, and so they discovered that you're disengaged. So the workers aren't as committed, it would appear, as they were when they're working 5 days a week.
It's hardly surprising if you're working them 10 hours a day.
Well,
that's not a surprise. Why is that a surprise? It's not a surprise. Isn't there a reason why pilots don't fly for 10 hours straight?
well
Come on. I mean,
yeah.
There's this saying in, well, I suppose you'd call it broken English or pidgin English. I've never really understood the difference between the two. There is a slight difference, but I've never worked it out. As we say in broken English in Nigerian, man no be Jackie.
What does that mean?
Man no be Jackie. It's all English, apart from maybe Jackie, which you might not know. Jackie is short for jackass.
Oh.
But not in a what's the word now? Not in an abusive way.
Not derogatory.
Just the technical. No, that's the word I was struggling to find. Thank you. Yes, not in a derogatory way. It's actually just the technical definition of a jackass, a donkey, right?
Yeah.
So it's just saying a man is not a donkey. You can't work a man like a donkey. Man no be Jackie.
Right.
And the man there is not gendered. It's humans.
Yeah.
Humans are not donkeys. Can't work them like donkeys and expect them to be productive. So people get tired, man.
I mean, the advantages though as well, other than they're getting more time away. Actually, the figures seem to show that you have more well-being, social and physical well-being for the worker. Now, obviously, the the owner of the company who's invested in the worker feels a little bit, if they're getting workforce that maybe, with their frame of mind feel great, they don't necessarily give 100% because they're more disengaged. So I can see some people, company owners and people like that, industry owners, will not be that keen on this trial and want it to end rather quickly, to be fair.
And want to what?
Want it to end rather quickly as opposed to it being encouraged. But then again, the worker, if you think about it, a high percentage are in favour, obviously, because they're working less days. But there is a small minority who are not happy. They actually want to work and be at work. Now, you do have to question this small minority. And no, I mean, there could be other reasons. Maybe they haven't got anything outside of work. I am aware of people like that.
Yeah, that's why I'm laughing. So obviously, they are antisocial nitwits. It's that simple. There's nothing complicated about it. It's like, try and get a life, dude. If your entire life is work, there's something really, really wrong with you, because it's not laudable. It's not something. I know that maybe American culture would laud such a Laud would laud such a person, but it's not laudable in my mind. It's like, we work so that we earn money so that we can do things and live.
Exactly. That's my sentiment. Exactly. I often preach this from the stage when I get that opportunity to speak. It's, yes, do a good job while you're working, of course, because you're exchanging your labour for an income, and whatever that labour means, it's intellectually or physically, you're exchanging for money. So you've got to give a good day's work for a good day's pay. But you should have other interests outside of work for your health. Seriously, hobbies, activities, even other businesses, anything like that around your primary work to keep you occupied, keeps your mind fresh, keeps you active. In actual fact, there's loads of evidence to show those people that do have hobbies or activities or things outside of their primary work actually are more productive when they do go back and work their primary job, because they've had time away from it and had time to relax and do something else. So even doing something else is downtime from the primary job, strangely enough, and it does bring benefits. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who, in quotes, are workaholics, that work the one job and solely the one job. Now, the disadvantage with that is that they almost live to work. And if they're not the boss of the company, which primarily they're not, the boss can move you, can make you redundant, the boss can change. So there's all these factors now outside of your control, and then the floor could be removed from your life, in effect, because they could get rid of you. Then what? You've put all your eggs in that work basket, you've committed, you've given them everything, only for them to take that floor away from you. So it does make sense to do other things, because you actually become more productive in the day job, funnily enough.
Yeah, and also I find that people who really enjoy their work, and well, they seem to enjoy work, they live for work, they are actually, in many cases that of my personal experience, they are actually pen pushers. They like making marks in charts and things like that. It's not true productive work. It's drudgery. if they can come in and put ticks into boxes, and they can spend the entire day filling up all these tick marks in all these boxes, they feel really proud of themselves. But it's not the kind of work which actually produces things. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
It's like
It's a periphery job.
Yes, but they love it. The people who love going into work, when you drill down to it, that's what they love doing.
There are other angles as well. Some people who do go to work, they go for the belonging, because outside of work, maybe they're lacking in that. They could be a single person. They could be
sad.
You don't want to use that term. That's a bit unfair.
But is it accurate though? Is it accurate?
Well, I think sad is a little bit too harsh. I think they could be lonely, and
well, that's sad too, isn't it?
Well, you can rectify it. It's not sad. They don't want to be.
It's not sad that people are lonely, Tony. Are you heartless?
It's sad as a whole, but singling out an individual isn't right. But you're right. They're going to work to feel part of something.
To fill a void.
Yes, perhaps.
That's what you're saying. They're going to work to fill a void, and that's sad. It's sad that they have a void, that they don't have a full, happy family life.
But then you shouldn't begrudge them that if that's the choice they want to have.
Who's begrudging anybody anything? I'm saying it's sad. How is sad? Because I'm sympathizing with them. What do you think sad means?
Upset, not happy.
Sorry?
Upset, not happy.
No, that's not what sad means. Sad means unfortunate. It's unfortunate. It's sad for them. It's sad. It's a sad situation to be in.
But that's a choice.
It's not a choice that they're lonely, is it?
Well, maybe they don't come to terms with the fact that they're lonely, and they enjoy work and say they enjoy work for that reason. So they never actually face the fact that they enjoy work purely because it then removes them from being at home, which is when they realise they're lonely. So not to face loneliness, they then choose to go to work.
Hold on, Tony. You've gone and conflated things that I'd never said. I said, it's sad that they're lonely. And then you said, maybe they don't know they're lonely. I'm not saying whether they know it or not. I'm saying it's a sad situation for anyone to be lonely. That in a perfect world, no one would be lonely.
Yes.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying. So when I say it's sad, that's what I mean. Now, how unfortunate for these individuals that they need work to fill the void in their lives. Now, it's not 100% of the set of individuals. There are people who do things. I'm thinking of a glass maker. So not glass, a tile maker.
Okay.
And you're going to ask me where? In some Arab country. I can't remember which Arab country. And he is the last of his line of the people who make tiles. Like it could be Greece actually, not an Arab country. He's the last of the people who make tiles this traditional way.
Okay.
Where he colors each tile lovingly, and he creates patterns. He creates a template with metal, and then he colors these tiles, and he does it this traditional way. And he's sad because he doesn't have anyone to pass it on to, and when he dies, it's done and gone. And he makes these beautiful tiles. Now I think he was saying he hasn't missed a day in 60 years or something. You know that kind of person.
That's
he
different.
loves.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. That someone like that actually is absolutely, because I said they're not very creative, they're not very productive. Well, those are the pen pushers I was talking about. The tick box people, the tick box mob. I'm not talking about people like this who genuinely love what they do, and for them it's not really work. By the way, it's their passion. Okay. So we have to be very careful to distinguish between those who have a passion, a genuine passion for what they're doing,
yeah,
and those who are filling in a void. But it's a long way away from the 4-day work week, which is what we're supposed to be discussing.
Yes, we are. But
and I think that the only problem with the 4-day week, whether it's a 10, whether you're working, first of all, I absolutely don't think anybody can be productive for 10 hours of the day. That's number one. Number two, we will be putting ourselves up against societies where they really work hard all the time. And
Mhm.
eventually, it's going to tell. Eventually, we'll be on the back foot because these other people will be more productive and they will outproduce us.
You see,
So is that really the direction we want to go in?
well, the thing is, if isn't the end product the key rather than the time spent? Because
No.
surely having, like you've rightly said, 10 hours in a day, you're not productive. So why are you spending 10 hours in a day? So that condensed working, which is what they're planning to do when you have 4 days, you're squeezing 5 into 4. That doesn't really work because you rightly say you're not that productive during that time. So it really has to be, what are you trying to achieve? If you're working 4 normal days, so your hours have been reduced from 40 to 32, but you're still producing the same amount of quality work in those 4 days that you were doing in 5, then it's win all round, is it not?
Yeah, but you can't, can you? Physically produce. You
Why?
physically can't do it.
Well, why not? Because
Well,
the
because historically it was judged. I mean, work evolved to accommodate those 5-day weeks. So
I
if you
think
were processing one passport a day, I've just renewed my passport, so that's why I'm thinking in those terms. That's why I'm thinking in those terms. If it's being worked out that a normal individual, the average individual, can process one new passport every day, then in 5 days you produce 5 passports, and in 4 days you produce 4 passports, and that's it.
I don't think it's quite as simple as that. I think it's more the fact that people actually slow down slightly when they realise they have more time. What you tend to find is that out of a working day, you are the most productive in the final 20% of that day. You get 80% of the work done in the 20% of the time. It's the Pareto rule. So that would work on a 4-day week. So you would get most of, or the majority of the work done in the last 20% of that week. So there's a trend here that seems to happen where we do that. We fit the work in the time available. So if the time has been reduced, you still fit the work in it. Now, granted, there's going to be some limitations to that based on machinery and physical changes to labour, etc. But there's a multitude of jobs out there that could fit this 4-day week because of this Pareto principle, where a lot of the time you're in work, but as you've rightly said, are you productive in those 8 hours that you're there? More often than not, you're not. So if we can cut it to 4 days, you still realise that in those 4 days you have to produce the same amount of work as you did with 5, and you may discover that people actually achieve it. God, I've stunned you into silence.
No, what is the principle you said? I've never heard of it before.
The
Can you spell it, please?
Pareto principle, Pareto. And it's basically
What
the
does it
80,
state?
you've heard the 80-20 rule.
Yes.
That's the name of it. It's Pareto
Oh, I
principle.
see.
That's the 80-20 rule's proper name, is the Pareto.
I
And
didn't know that.
and you can use it. It's not just in some examples. It's in the multitude of areas in society that this principle applies, and it works. It's bizarre. In a company, 20% of the workforce produce 80% of the results.
Yeah, well, I
That
don't know.
tends to
We'll
be
have
a
to see.
pattern that seems to work that way.
How does
And,
that work in a school?
you have 20% of teachers that succeed in teaching 80% of the people that pass. 80% of them pass because they've been with those 20% of the teachers.
Okay, so that doesn't make any sense at all because 20% of the teachers don't teach all the subjects.
No, but the 20% of the teachers teach those subjects, and the kids that take those subjects, the 80% of them will
Look,
pass.
you don't have a leg to stand on. Here's another one for you. How does that work in the airline industry? Go on. If 20% of the pilots get 80% of the planes there.
No, that doesn't work that way. There.
Exactly. Come on, man. Come off it, man. So if we look at doctors, is it only 20% of the doctors are carrying 80% of the
No.
population?
The 20% of the doctors have 80% of the appointments. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you see, I think that can be very easily debunked. I
No.
don't think I think you've overgeneralized. That is actually a logical fallacy, isn't it? Overgeneralization. You went way too far with that, pal.
Okay.
Way out
Okay.
there.
Anyway,
Yeah,
we're
done this
wobbling on
together, I
here.
think.
We're wobbling
No,
on, and we want to
I
get
just
some
don't.
more topics in
Ask me
if
the
we can.
crucial question now.
Go on.
No, go on. You always ask me. So what's my
Oh
final?
yeah. What's your final point on this 4 day week? Is it good or bad? Is it what's your view?
Well, my final point is that 10-hour days is completely out of the question. And yes, I would personally love to work a 4 hour week, which is 32 hours, but get paid the same as I would for a 40-hour week. But would that be good for our society? I don't think so.
I think the end result. I think, like you, I think 4 day week would work because people's well-being will be better. But I also think that you still get the productivity high and you'll get happier workforce, which means you'll get better productivity anyway for the company longer term. So I personally think it's a good idea.
Right.
Okay,
We agree to
we
disagree.
agree to it almost.
No, we agree to disagree
Well, I don't know. I think we both
because I
agree.
disagree with the 4 day week.
Oh, okay. Okay. Right, let's move on. Let's move on. Our next subject is quite a bizarre one, actually. It's entitled "What's Going On with the Dog?" You heard this rightly. The Dog Suicide Bridge.
Mm.
Now, Tyre, you discovered this one, so do you want to elaborate for our listeners? They're probably hearing this and thinking, "What?"
Well, I came across a video, strange things, strange events, and this town called Overtone, or Overtone. It's in Scotland, so goodness knows how to pronounce it. It's Overtoun. Overtone has got a famous bridge, and the bridge is famous because over the past 50 years, 600, you heard that right, over
Yeah.
600 dogs have leapt to their deaths over the.
Have they all died though? I don't think it's 600
Well,
have
not all of
died.
them, but
No.
but but most of them have, because it's
Yeah.
a 60-foot drop, isn't it? So
Yeah.
you don't land on your feet feeling too sort of chuffed
Mm. Yeah.
at the end of that rather precipitous drop. And well, I suppose the question that immediately sprang to my mind is, if dogs keep leaping to their deaths off this bridge, why don't you have your dogs on a leash when you're going over the bridge? It's not as if you haven't heard about the blooming thing. So anyway, there we go. And there's all sorts of theories. People are confused. They don't know what's going on. And I watched one video this afternoon, actually. Doing a bit of research for this show, where a so-called researcher, very lackadaisical research methods, took a dog over the bridge, and there was nothing. Just a happy dog, just happily wagging its tail, and just trotted right across the bridge without any difficulty or problems.
The thing
So,
is, though, it's not every time, though, is it? That's what they're
no,
saying.
it's 12 times a year if you're going to do 650 years, isn't it?
Hmm.
So basically once a month.
Yeah.
So unless you're really dedicated in research and you really sort of just set up shop there and wait and wait and wait until one dog takes the leap.
Well, funny
You,
you should say that. Funny you should say that. I mean, just for context for our listeners, this bridge was built in 1895 in Victorian times, and there's actually some eyewitnesses who live nearby. And there's one in particular who lives in a house called Overtone House, Overtown, or however you spell it. And his name, and I'll quote his name is Bob Hill. And because he lives near the actual bridge, he has seen with his own eyes several dogs suddenly dive off the bridge during his 17 years living in Overton House. So he's seen it for himself, where dogs, for whatever reason, suddenly dive off the bridge. And it seems to be in one particular location. It's not anywhere across the bridge. It seems to be isolated more so in one particular area. And you're right, there's been many myths, there's been many stories about, could it be haunted, could they see their death and they're freaked. They've even touted the white lady who is an overtone ghost who is there, but particularly spooks dogs. And so the dogs are affected, they're startled, and so they jump. But I mean, I don't know whether you want to add anything to that, because as far as the digging that I've been doing, it seems to show, because beneath this bridge there isn't a torrent of water, for instance. There's no water there at all. There's a lot of it's like a disused bridge now, in terms of where the water is. So you've got a lot of foliage and greenery and all that sort of stuff. So there is a theory that the dogs are just confused because the perspective at the certain part of the bridge confuses the dogs. So they believe that the depth that they jump down is far less than it actually is, because there's trees and bushes that have grown. So they think it's not a big leap. But what causes them to jump in the first place is the possibility of animal sense in the grass area, which triggers the dogs, so they can smell it, they get excited, they think that the leap isn't as big as it is, and so they take the jump. So it's almost like an optical illusion for them, that they believe it's far shallower than it actually is. But as you've already alluded to, it's 15 meters or whatever it is that in feet. That's quite a big jump, and hence
it's actually a little amusing if you have a dark sense of humor like me. Okay, so the walls of the bridge has got these low walls.
Yeah.
And the dog can't actually see. They can't actually see to the bottom of the bridge. It appears that they assume that they're not very high. So they jump and discover to their, should we say, they are taking it back to discover that, oh, okay, so this is gonna hurt.
Why am I laughing? I've got 2 dogs. I'd be horrified if anything happened to my dogs.
It's just amazing. So there you go, boom. Oh, there's this theory that they can smell badger pee.
Yes, there's something animal scent.
Some kind of animal. I think it's badgers, but I might be wrong. I think they can smell. This is one of the various theories. They get to this part of the bridge. Possibly this is where we don't have that acute sense of smell. Possibly this is where the smell is strongest. And so they go, oh, badgers, ooh, and then they jump. You see? And then, like I said, then they make the horrific discovery that this isn't going to end well, and off they go to the afterlife. And and then the other question you got, I asked one question already. Well, why don't you just keep your dog on a leash?
Well, indeed.
Seems to make sense.
Well,
then the other question I got to ask is, can't somebody put up some fencing?
That's right. Why? Why don't they? It seems to be that the people who are responsible for the bridge actually like the notoriety of it, because you then maybe attract more dog walkers there purely out of curiosity, morbid curiosity, to find out about the bridge. And it's becoming almost a tourist attraction, isn't it, in a morbid kind of way, so they don't want to it's almost. I know we're speculating here, but it's almost like the owners of the bridge want the number of dogs to die or leap off to remain, so they can keep this story going, so that it attracts more people to the small village, which is tourism and generates money. That's a sort of a cynical.
Pretty cynical.
Yeah,
That's right. Cynical. And besides, when you say the people who own the bridge, I don't believe it's in private hands, is it?
Well, is the council
I thought it was in
responsible?
public hands.
Is it the council that are responsible for the bridge? They
I
must be.
thought so.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, I
they're
don't know
going
for
to be.
sure, but-
They're not going to. How can I put it? Stop a cash cow. If this
Wow.
bridge, by the virtue of its notoriety, brings punters there to find out what's going on, well, yeah, they're going to bring people to find. Oh, yeah, it's that bridge. This is that bridge, because of the notoriety of it. They're not going to quell that, are they? They're not going to put up, fences that make the ambience look bad as well. But I agree with you. There's probably more pleasantly aesthetic ways of doing it without, harming the look of the bridge and the surrounding houses, but at the same time protecting the dogs that are off the lead and wanting to jump. There is something I do want to add, though, which has been quite interesting, actually. You mentioned 300 to 600 dogs have jumped off of this bridge, which is true. What is really strange is, I don't know whether this is a factor, but long-nosed dogs are the ones that have died the most because they've jumped the most. So there's a disproportionate number of long-nosed dogs that have died. Could it be that reinforces this theory about the smell? Could it then
seem
mean?
to. Anecdotally.
Yeah.
It would seem to.
There's no evidence or anything, other than that. But the fact that there are more of these long-nosed dogs that have died seems to, add some weight behind the fact that it could be a smell that they detect. Because notoriously, the flat-nosed dogs, their sense of smell isn't very good at all. So that could be a reason. But, I mean, there are other things as well. I mean, like I said, there's some people have even touted that the bridge could be possessed.
Yes, well.
I can tell you a horrible
the one
story.
good thing about Overtoun Bridge.
I can't even say Overtoun. Is it
Overtoun
Overtown but
Bridge.
spelt Scottish? I don't know. Is it Overtown Bridge?
I
Maybe.
No.
Overtoun.
Scots are like the Irish that can't spell to save their lives.
You can't say that.
Sorry.
You can't say that.
Well, let's face it. The Irish can't spell. I mean, how do you spell Siobhan, for goodness sakes? Forget it. They're spelling from the French, if you ask me. Anyway, the good thing about Overtoun Bridge is that no one has mentioned aliens. So thank goodness for
No,
that.
we haven't gone that far, which is good.
Thank goodness and wonderful.
But there is a darker story as well, which occurred in 1994. Now, this was the year that a 32-year-old father threw his own baby over the bridge into the gorge below because he believed that the baby was an antichrist. And the baby obviously died, and the father was declared insane and committed to an institution. So,
wouldn't it be really ironic if the baby was the Antichrist and had driven the father insane, and the father is cooling his heels now in a mental hospital for saving the world? That would be ironic.
it would also be a big leap. A leap in faith of explaining, not literal leap over the bridge, but literally this story that you are peddling, which sounds completely ridiculous, because you're now saying that the potential, because this guy who was clearly insane believe
Driven
that.
insane by the Antichrist baby. Yeah.
No, it's a baby. I mean, come on, that's just nonsense. To actually to believe that in some degree, or just throw a spanner in the works to sort of imply it was the case. He was clearly insane, and it's a tragic situation where he threw his own baby over the bridge. Now, I dare say they're highlighting this because it makes a story, and they're trying to connect the dots of making this bridge seem more paranormal than it actually is. So there's
Yes.
somehow...
Well, that's feedback loop, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's your feedback loop. This
Yeah.
bridge is peculiar, so I'm going to go and do something peculiar on the bridge.
Yeah.
Which makes it peculiar, which means other people go and make it peculiar, which makes it more peculiar. So it's just a feedback loop, isn't it?
Reinforces
I don't
what they believe
think
anyway.
the child was Antichrist. I think the child was very unfortunate to have a disturbed father.
Yeah, which is such a shame.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame that all the dogs leapt. I'll tell you what, it's sad.
Yeah, it is sad. I want to quickly...
There we go. That's the meaning of sad that we both understand.
Yeah, okay.
You see what I did there?
There's a story about where a lady was saying that she couldn't believe, she was recounting the story of her dog. So she was actually one of the owners of the dog, where the dog jumped over, and she thought the dog started behaving peculiarly, and it wasn't acting the same. She was calling it and wasn't responding, and she felt a strange feeling while on the bridge, and then inexplicably her dog just literally chose to run and dive off the side, and she was completely shocked.
Let me interrupt you there. When you've got dogs, like you said, and I used to have dogs. When you walk dogs and dogs become interested in something, they do tend to start ignoring you because something grabs their attention.
Yeah, of course.
So if the dog heard something, she wouldn't have heard it because they've got a different range of hearing from us.
Yes.
And the dog could have heard something, smelled something, and then gone chasing after it in the belief that there was something interesting there, which is consistent with her eyewitness account. There's nothing inconsistent there. So we don't need paranormal explanations. An ordinary, everyday explanation fits the facts, apart from this strange feeling she had. And you know how women have strange feelings all the time, so that's subjective. We don't know whether what the hell she was feeling that day.
I've got another story.
So I'm not impressed.
I've got another story
Sorry?
very quickly. I've got another one along similar lines, very, very quickly.
All right.
This is one from a lady called Emma Dunlop, and she'd heard about the bridge, and she's got a Labrador retriever called Ginger, and she took him for a walk. Even though she'd heard about the horror story, she took him for a walk anyway. See, some people get drawn by it. Well, I wouldn't say ask for it, they get drawn by it. So she didn't let him out of the car until he was on his leash, and he never tried to jump, she said, but sometimes he freezes or hesitates when he gets on the bridge, so she's always careful. So Ginger jumped from the car, raced around his owner, and headed straight towards the bridge, crossing it without any hesitation. But then Ginger froze, looking back intently at something on the bridge, which appeared empty to humans. Aye, there she is. There's the ghost of the White Lady, Mrs. Dunlop said with a laugh, suggesting Ginger had seen the bridge's ghost, which is the story of the ghost of the White Lady on the bridge. Now, to be honest, I think that's just a story made up to increase the anxiety and the story and the fact that this bridge is a bit weird. I think it's purposely created for that reason. I think there's no ghost. It's just adding to the myth of the suicide bridge.
Well, I don't have anything much to say. It's anecdotal. I don't believe there's a video or anything accompanying that story, is there?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Right. So,
it was on the New York Times, though. They actually produced this.
Well, the New York Times used to have my respect, but not nowadays. No,
No.
not now. I've read their political stories. I have
Anyway,
zero respect for them. So,
so in conclusion, what do you think? What's
said
going on
Tony,
with these dogs?
trying to hurry me along.
Yes, I am. So you don't get sidetracked. So what's your conclusion of this dog suicide bridge?
The statistics are that there's something there, but it's not, I suspect, paranormal. And like we say, there is a very simple solution here, which is to erect a little fence. And especially since it's a very particular part of the bridge. So if our audience look into this, they will find that it's a very particular part of the bridge, not the entire bridge. It's this sort of 1.5 meter section. And maybe just erect a little fence there. That's all.
Mm.
And that will be the end of that. So it's sort of a storm in a teacup, but it's a pretty big teacup.
Mm. Okay. My conclusion the same. I don't think it's suicide. Suicide is a human thing, not a dog thing.
Yes.
So yeah, the name is a human. The name is given to the bridge just for our effect, for our benefit. Yes, it's a tragedy. So many dogs are choosing to jump, but there must be something attracting them to jump rather than them thinking it's suicide. So it's that, as you say, if they erected a small fence, maybe that would solve the problem. Okay, let's move on to another topic. Now this one is one that you chose, which is rather amusing actually for us to discuss, and it's titled, "Is it possible to prove that a person is objectively stupid?" What do you want to say to that?
This problem between the West and Russia has thrown up the fact that seemingly our leaders in the West are some of the stupidest people on the planet. And it could be that there's information to which I am not privy, which makes me think they're stupid, but they're really not. And I thought to myself, I asked myself the question, I wonder if it would be possible to objectively prove that someone is stupid, because then we could subject these leaders to these tests and then determine one way or another why they made the seemingly idiotic decisions that they did. So it was this search for a way of understanding, of trying to figure out if society can protect itself from buffoons in an objective fashion. So maybe, before you run for office, you have to take the test. And if it turns out that you're stupid, because stupidity, by the way, just to finish this off, stupidity is not actually related to intelligence.
No, correct.
So you can't give them an IQ test and say, well, they've got a high IQ and therefore they're not stupid. So there's two problems, as I said. A, you have to define what stupidity actually is, and I think somebody did a pretty good job of that with his... Well, remember that for dividing something to 4 squares into 4 quadrants that I showed you once, the quadrants of stupidity.
Yes.
So someone's done a good job of trying to define what is stupid.
But
and then the next thing to do... Sorry?
But isn't stupidity relative, to a different viewpoint? Because you could, in all intents and purposes, several people, in fact, could believe that someone is stupid at the way that he's acting, but like you've said already, they may be privy to information that no one else is privy to, which then reflects. So that, when you say stupidity, it's relative, isn't it? So is anybody actually stupid in reality, or is there less stupid people than we believe?
Well, this is why the question includes that term objective. Because when there's an objective standard, it's just a standard that you can measure against. And if it works properly and it truly is objective, it won't matter who the observer is, because that's what makes it objective. So we need to. Is it possible to work out if someone is objectively stupid? That's the question.
There are 3 pointers that we can use to help us make that call, and this is what I did when I was finding my research. There's 3 things which you can say for somebody is stupid. There's a term called confident ignorance. So in other words, they're totally unaware and lacking knowledge in a particular area, but they're arrogant with the knowledge they currently have. So they're not keen on finding out more in case their knowledge is limited. They're confident in their ignorance. So
do you know why I'm laughing?
Why?
I'm laughing because that adequately and superbly describes a lot of people I meet on the internet, and the word I use for them is oaths. Loathsome oaths. that really, really fry my onions and make me so angry that I start using very bad words. It's like, you oink, you utter oink. You don't know what you're talking about, and you're just so very certain that you do.
I think it's the language as well, the absolute language. Nothing is absolute. Everything. I mean, but I have said this to you myself. If you don't, things are not black and white. They're shades of grey, and there's always ambiguity.
Is that black and white, by the way?
Sorry?
What you just said now, is that black and white or not?
What's not black and white?
That things are not always black and white.
They're not.
Yeah, I'm asking.
When
you've made a statement, and you're saying things are never black and white.
No,
yes?
Okay, I've said it, haven't I? Things are not often black and white. There we go. They're majority shades of grey. The absolute.
So there are things which are black and white. So there are things which are black and white.
I think there's few and far between.
Yeah, but there are, right?
There may be.
So there may be is a beautiful. So that's a very beautiful evasion. I don't respect you for making it. In fact, I'm positively infuriated by you making that horrible evasion. There you go. Well, then maybe. All right. Is my name Tayo?
Is your name Tyre? As far as I'm aware.
Do you have any good reason to suspect that my name is not Tayo? Okay, are you Tony?
No.
Sorry?
That's not my real name, is it?
Sorry?
That's not my birth name. There you go.
Okay. Are you someone who is? Are you usually called Tony?
I am usually called Tony. Yes.
There you go. It's black and white.
Oh dear. Anyway, let me carry on with my definition. Remember, I only gave you one, which is the confident ignorance, which you
it's a very good one, by the way.
Yes.
That's hilarious. Yes.
Another one, actually, for gauging stupidity, is absent-mindedness. So this is an interesting one.
Oh,
because
that's not nice.
No, but it is, because you have the knowledge, but you're not paying attention to things outside of your scope. So
is that really stupid?
Yeah, it is, because you can get intelligent people. This is why stupidity is not linked to intelligence level, but you can get really intelligent people who are absent-minded and end up doing things stupid, either to themselves, to other people, causing a problem. So it can be termed as a measure of stupidity if you're constantly absent-minded and you're not paying attention and you're not in awareness of what you're doing, especially if some of the tasks you're performing are you can cause real damage. And you can get people who are in a car who are absent-minded and they can cause an accident because they were being stupid. So the action was the stupidity. Well,
I don't like that term at all. I'm offended. I'm offended by by the correlation. An absent-minded person is just absent-minded. I don't see that as being stupid. I mean, your first one, being very confident when you know nothing, that is stupid. But being absent-minded, that's just being absent-minded.
Well, these are all measures.
I don't see it as being stupid.
Well, it is, because during that moment of absent-mindedness, where you're not paying attention, you've let something lapse, go wrong, and it was all in your control. And because you were absent-minded, you were not paying attention, that's classed as being stupid. That act was stupid because you didn't do what you should have done.
All right,
so
let's move on. I'm not going to accept that. But,
okay.
No, I don't accept that. No.
The third one that defines stupidity is lacking self-control, would you believe? And this is knowing...
Yes.
This is knowing negative outcomes are there, but you proceed with the action knowingly anyway, because you're lacking self-control. So...
I hate this one. You know why I hate this one?
Go on.
Because it makes me stupid. I have just eaten an entire packet of biscuits. All in one go, basically. And even I admit it was pretty stupid.
Well, there you go. There you go.
I've got issues now with my tummy, and I knew it was going to happen.
There you go, you see. So this definition of stupidity, using those three terms, actually is quite accurate. So if you wanted to use those, like the confident ignorance, okay, you didn't like the other two, absent-mindedness and lacking self-control.
Well, no, I when I say I didn't like it, I mean, I think it's accurate. It's spot on.
Okay.
But obviously it paints me in a bad light. So
we all succumb to this. This is the thing. We can all be stupid sometimes. It doesn't mean we are stupid inherently. So, we have stupid acts, and that's the problem. But doesn't mean we are stupid per se. Yeah?
Do you know what? Haven't you just proved that our Western leaders are stupid? Because they knew the consequences of imposing sanctions upon Russia, but they did it anyway?
Yes, I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Because were they hopeful the consequences or the outcomes would be different? Is that what they were doing it for? Because any person, I mean, let's put it this way. Okay, this is how I'm seeing it in a simplistic view. The leaders were not happy that Russia invaded Ukraine, so they thought, let's put heavy sanctions on Russia. The sanctions will bite, it will stop them getting money, and after just a month or two, they'll pull out and we can reverse the sanctions. That's what I think they were hopeful for. However, they didn't look at the data, they didn't spend the time to analyse the repercussions of the sanctions, and they were more living in hope that Russia would then back away. However, Russia hasn't done any of this, so the figures show, the stats and everything show now, the sanctions are damaging the West badly. We can see it everywhere. Prices, inflation, lack of resources, you see it. There it is, it's everywhere. But to not lose face, they still are refusing to back down on the sanctions, because now it's self-preservation. So rather than doing what's right for their populations, they don't want to look bad and weak to their populations, so they can't back down. So they've got themselves in a right mess. And you're absolutely right, it was stupid. They were making assumptions, hoping that Russia would back away and pull out, but instead it's backfired. Russia haven't done that. So instead of putting their hands up and going, okay, these sanctions are hurting our people, let's stop them and let's try a different diplomacy, let's try something else. But no, because they've gone so far, they don't want to lose face, and they can't now back down. And that's a really poor way of leading, because you're now not doing what's best for the country and your nation. You're doing it what's best for you, so you don't lose face.
So maybe one aspect of stupidity is selfishness,
Possibly, yeah.
some kind of selfishness. And also, I wondered when when you were speaking there, I wondered if you were describing, in some respect, not so much the third state of not being able to see foreseeable outcomes, but the second criterion
Hmm.
of absent-mindedness, of not paying attention, if you like, being very, very wrapped up in what they were trying to achieve
Hmm.
without taking the time to think, well, what are the, like game playing,
Yeah.
gaming the outcomes, so
Yeah.
that they could look at it and go, well, what if Russia does? Ooh, I see, that would be really bad for us.
What I
Instead
would
of which they were
think,
absent-minded and they just thought, well, Russia won't have any income, they'll go broke, their ruble will crash, the economy will tank, and nobody thought to play devil's advocate.
well, what I would like to know is whether the decisions that are made by the leaders were based on the analysis that were done of the armies of people that they have at their disposal that work out these sorts of things. So if you apply this, what's the likely outcome? And they do all these calculations and they predict what's the likely outcome. So ultimately, the decision obviously lands at the leader's door, and they have to make a decision based on the information that's been provided. But they can go against that information, of course, because they could make a decision politically as opposed to what the evidence seems to portray. So the evidence could have said, if Russia don't pull out after the first 3 weeks, these sanctions are useless, so we should reverse them. But clearly they don't want to lose face, and now they're in a bit of a conundrum, because the more they plough ahead with this, the worse the damage is happening to our respective Western economies. Unless we can throw a real curveball in here, there's a bigger plan afoot that we don't know about.
Well, there is some thinking that this is been done deliberately to implement the Great Reset.
What is this Great Reset? I mean, I'm mindful of the time of the show here, so you're going to have to be quite concise in your explanation, but what is it?
I can be very concise. I know what it's called, but I don't know what it is.
Oh.
Okay. How concise is that?
Maybe we should do a show on it.
The Great Reset is you will own nothing and you'll be happy. And we have to break down society first. It's a little bit like Marxist. Well, I suppose it's ultra Marxist philosophy, isn't it? Where you have to break down the existing order in order to create a new order, which was one order too many. Yeah, you have to break down the existing order to create a new order. So the World Economic Forum, the WEF, I forget the name of the gentleman who first posited this. Only a few years ago, not very long ago, he spoke about the Great Reset, and it could be that is why they're pursuing it so avidly. This is why Ursula von der Leyen, what is she, the president of the EU or something? What is
Commission, isn't she? Head of the EU Commission, is that right?
Head of the EU Commission. This is why she is still not phased, with the idea of just turning off Russian gas altogether, even though it's going to tank Germany's economy by up to 14% or something. She's not phased by it, and people aren't phased by it because their idea is we've all got to give up our cars. We've got to get used to eating insects rather than meat. And we've got to do all this because we're creating a new and better world. A brave new world, basically. Yeah, that's the Great Reset.
Okay. Interesting. All right, I'm mindful of the time. Your final thoughts on this topic about stupidity?
You've given me fantastic food for thought. I thought you might, which is why I wanted to discuss it with you. And I think, to be honest with you, Tony, that you've dipped your foot in the toe there of success. And you might very well have come up with something. I'll have to think about it properly and try to probably write a white paper on this, or monograph or something, and see if it works. Because yeah, I think absent-mindedness is a bit fluffy. That needs to be tied down into more academically strict language. But I think you got something there. Those three criteria you give.
Cool. Right. I just like the topic. Right. But unfortunately, we have reached the end of the show for another week.